Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode, and as we have a huge demand on AI and artificial intelligence and big data and these things, especially from the youth community on Asia Pacific, that's why we again invite Mr. Bryan Talebi, and he is from Ahura AI. He actually inventing different kind of things and technology, especially for developing skills and knowledge-based community. And in the COVID period, actually AI playing a very important roles in Asia Pacific. So hopefully today's discussion will be very important and very valuable for our youth community, our corporations, our universities and academic sector. So hello, Mr. Bryan Talabi, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you, sir. First thing for like already we finished a session with you, but we want to know more about Ahura AI. So it's very interesting name, and you have very interesting teams and activities. Can you please share with us what's going on inside your organization?
Sure, absolutely. So, we invented technology that enables people to learn 3 to 5 times faster than traditional education. We do this by personalizing education in a way that hasn't been done before. So, we collect over 10,000 biometric data points every second off of every user and feed that information into our proprietary convolutional neural network that enables us to have a deep understanding about the optimal way to deliver content to an individual in real time to optimize their learning performance. So our studies so far and the people that we've rolled this technology out to suggest initially that we're able to teach people 3 to 5 times faster than traditional education at 1/10 of the cost. And so this can have massive ramifications on the world of upskilling and skills retraining as we enter the fourth industrial revolution and as many of the standard traditional jobs get replaced by automation and artificial intelligence. So where we are now is we're working very heavily to make sure that our technology is very secure because we need to have bank level security on our technology to make sure bad actors aren't able to hack into our platform and take that data from people. Because
Mhm.
one of the commitments that we've made from stage at the World Economic Forum, as well as the United Nations, as well as to the US Capitol, is that given that we're collecting this sheer quantity of biometric data that's connected to how people consume content, that's very sensitive information. So we need to make sure that not only do we provide agency for each individual user over their own data and how it's used, but we also need to protect that data to make sure that that it's not hacked.
Mhm. Yes, this is very interesting that you come up with the new technology and new things. I want to go to the different angle of the part. Let's
Sure.
say in the many developing nations, uh, they are trying to integrate it with that technology. Let's say country like Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam. They are integrated with the new technology. On the other hand, they have huge amount of populations,
Mm-hmm.
as well as there is a big chance that COVID-19 situations, like already many people actually unemployed. So my
Sure.
question is that actually how can be AI can be helpful for the youth community for getting more jobs or getting more opportunities? What's your thought on that particular issue?
That's a really great question, and I'm glad you asked it. So let me take a step back and tell you what we're already doing. We're already doing partnerships with Tanzania, Kenya, Ghana, and the Congo, India, Brazil, and a number of other countries that are facing similar problems. As you know, in Africa, many countries suffer from a 42% youth unemployment rate. That's really challenging for people because a lot of these kids go off and do all the things they're supposed to do. They go to university, they get good grades, they learn to speak and write in English, but yet when they come out, it's very difficult for them to get meaningful jobs that provide enough resources for them. And so what we found is they're able to use our technology, and especially in uh, areas that require more attention, we give away licenses of our products in collaboration and in partnership with governments and with nonprofits to provide our technology to wide swaths of the population, especially youth, to enable them to learn the specific things that they need for the jobs that are scaling out now and in the future. So specifically, digital forward internet first jobs like coding with Python and Java, coding on the blockchain, social media management, becoming tech salespeople and customer success reps for tech companies in the Western world, being able to do therapy online in a gig format, being able to provide their services online to other people, especially in this world of a pandemic and in a world where it's increasingly more connected and corporations might not be in the same city or even in the same country where you live. We enable these youth to be able to work everywhere. Now, specifically with Malaysia and other countries in Southeast Asia, we have not yet gotten into partnerships with these countries in Southeast Asia. We would love to. So, if any of your listeners can connect us to governments or nonprofits in Malaysia or other countries in Southeast Asia where we can provide our technology to enable young people in a 3 to 6 month period to be able to learn all the skill sets that they need to be able to take on jobs working remotely at Western corporations or even right within their local communities. We are very open to that, and we have a certain bucket of licenses that we give away for free to members of underserved communities globally to enable them to lift themselves up and compete on an international level.
Yes, this is very interesting initiative you have. Beside that, in World Talent Economy Forum, you can find that beside the European and American University, we have International Islamic University,
Mhm.
University Technology Malaysia, University of Malaya, even Muhammadiyah Society. I think they are one of the biggest from Indonesia. Even before different, even tomorrow we have conference with India that more than 300 institutions will join theirs. So hopefully this message will we will convey and to this to our audience and to our different institutions, and hopefully they will connect with you. Beside that, I have another things, because example, you are from USA,
Mhm.
and in Asia Pacific example, we have strong integrations with China, and
Mhm.
technologically China and USA still they have some sort of tension and other things. So how is your organization, how are you taking these preparations, or what do you think about this USA and China relationship right now?
Sure. Look, Sharif, I appreciate you asking that. At Ahura AI, we try to stay out of politics. There will
Very good.
always be concerns or questions or trade wars or things said by world leaders to each other. But look, in the tech community, we're focused on solving problems. And
Mhm.
at our company, uh, we want to help the world. We believe that every person is part of the human family. And so, do we have to be careful about certain things? Absolutely, we do. Um, there are different perspectives about data privacy and ownership in different countries. Do we have to be careful about any work we do with governments? Absolutely, because we want to make sure that um, any work that we do is aligned with our values. With that being said, our goal is to help all of humanity, and so we work with all parties.
Hmm. Yes, you are a problem solver, and you are taking a lot of good initiative to solve this problem. Even you are not only the corporation and business area you focus, you also focus on the underprivileged community. So, like example, like what's your plan? Like how many people you want to reach next few years? Do you have any strategy plans, or anything in your mind that this amount of people you want to reach next 2 3 4 years?
Yes, absolutely. So our goal is to have over 2 million users on our platform within 1 year. So we already have contracts with signed for over 300,000 users in the
Mm,
United States,
mhm,
and we are looking to give away an additional 300,000 licenses of which we've already given away about 180, 190,000 to various partners around the world. As we move forward, we're looking to increase both of those numbers to at least 500,000, but preferably to several million in each vertical, about a million or 2 million or 3 million on the paid side to corporations, and then the same number given away to various nonprofits and governmental institutions around the world.
Yes. Okay. It's really nice. It's really nice. Uh, Beside that example, like at present we have a challenging situation. That's okay, no
Mhm.
problem, we can make a global relationship and other things. But do you face any cultural barriers or cultural challenges when you team up with the other countries, or how do you solve? Yeah.
Sure, that's something we always want to take into account and be careful about. We want to make sure that we're able to take into account different cultures and different ways of doing things. Now, one thing is right now, our technology works entirely in English. Over time, we want to change that. Down the road, we want to provide our technology in multiple languages. Right now, we're just too small of a company to do that. And so right now, we work entirely in English and enable people to learn in English and to do jobs in English. Now, we do have partnerships with several other organizations that enable people, once they go through our programs and learn the material, to be able to then get jobs through the partnerships that we have in the Western world. What that means is there's a lot of opportunity down the road to take into account various languages and enable people to learn in their own language. As far as culture goes, look, different countries have different perspectives on online learning.
Mhm.
In the United States, the conversion rate or completion rate of massive online open courseware or MOOCs, the completion rate is 16%, which is terrible, which
Mhm.
means 84% of people that sign up quit.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
in different countries, that percentage is higher or lower, depending on different societies' expectations of personalization and their expectation of the quality of the work. Uh, to us, ultimately, at the end of the day, we believe that that personalization, regardless of the expectation of personalization, does indeed have a tremendous impact on a person's ability to learn and retain that information. So ultimately, we do take it into account, but uh, we haven't really focused on the differences between people. We focus right now more on the similarities between people across the world.
Mhm. Yes. Okay. This is good, but I want to go more detail. Let's say, uh,
Sure.
example, what's your strategy? Example, when you give the plan and when you give the idea or training program for students, like how they can upskill themselves, how
Ah,
they can develop themselves.
sure.
What's the special things you have? Because you also say that many online education is still not successful, but what's
Yeah.
the different things you have that many students or many corporate person will be benefited from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, as I mentioned before, since we collect over 10,000 biometric data points every second, we're able to have and we've been building a convolutional neural network for a long time and feeding it with the right data to be able to identify the key pieces that enable us to understand in every moment what is the optimal way to deliver content to an individual. And since we're able to do that in real time, we're able to alter the content. So we're able to bounce back and forth between text-based learning, experiential learning, and video-based learning. And
Mhm.
even within the video-based learning, we're able to jump between different teachers explaining the material. Because for a student, maybe at 7 in the morning, when they've had their morning coffee, they've exercised already, they're ready to go, maybe they need to have a British 65-year-old man with a posh British accent explaining to them how to code in Java. But potentially at 7 p.m., when they've had a full day, they just had a fight with their significant other, they are really tired and want to take a nap, maybe at that point, they need a 25-year-old Australian with an Australian accent explaining the material to you. It turns out that when people are watching other people speak, there's a number of variables that impact their ability to pay attention, learn the material, and retain that information longer. And so these variables include the person's accent, their tone of voice, their tempo, how fast they talk, their gender, their race, their clothing, even the background, all have an impact on a person's ability to absorb that information. And so we're able to continuously have this feedback loop that enables us to switch back and forth between different teachers and different modes of communication so that we can optimize how fast people learn.
Mhm. Yes, very good initiative. I'm really, really impressed that you have many multi-dimensional strategy to help to the students. Okay. This is very interesting, and you are a visionary person. You have your own visions. This is very good. And from World Talent Economy Forums, our major objective is that we want to know what will happen next 2 to 3 years, because in COVID-19 situation now economy collapse, many organization has problem. What's your idea? What's your thoughts? What will happen next few years?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So there's a couple things that I'll go through. Number one, we're already in the fourth industrial revolution. We already have been for a number of years. And what COVID has done is it's exacerbated the situation and accelerated the progression. So what we're seeing is any individual that works in an environment where they have repetitive manual labor will be replaced by automation. And after that, anybody that does repetitive cognitive labor will be replaced. So anybody that's currently a truck driver, an Uber driver, a taxi driver, anybody that's a retail employee or in fast food, or anybody that's an office worker in work that does not require thinking very much, just repetitive manual labor, all of those jobs are already being replaced right now. And over the next 2 years, most of those jobs will go away. So that's number one. Number two, any jobs that can be done remotely will. Dr. Fauci and many people in the World Health Organization, as well as the United Nations and others, predict that we're entering an era of pandemics. And so regardless of whether we're able to get a vaccine for the coronavirus pandemic, we are expecting that other pandemics will go through the world every year or so, which means that the world will not go back to normal. I do not expect that we will go back to a pre-COVID world, because there will be so many pandemics constantly going through, which means people will have to be quarantined, people will be working remotely, people will be learning remotely. You'll be in front of your computer more often than you'll be in individual contact. Now, there are ways around it. So with Sandbox Impact, we're bringing people together in a way where we test everybody for coronavirus to enable people to still get into physical proximity with each other. I believe that's the third thing, where we're going to see a complete shift in the way that humans interact with each other. Whereas we have been used to historically just going to concerts, going to parties, and so forth. Now there's going to be a much higher cost to going out. So each time you go out, you'll need to be tested, you'll need to follow certain protocols, and eventually be able to interact that way. So those are the three biggest predictions I have around how society is structured and how jobs will be
Mhm. Yes.
done. Yes,
Can you hear me?
I can. Yes, to take off my.
I cannot hear you clearly.
Clearly. One sec.
Okay, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Do I need to be louder?
Yes, hello.
Yes, hello.
Yes, I cannot hear you
Yeah,
clearly.
you cannot hear me.
Mr. Bryan, can I?
Bryan, can I? You cannot. Hold on. Can you hear?
Can you use your headphone?
Uh,
Sorry, audience, I can't.
can you hear me now?
Yes, yes,
My
yes, yes,
looks like it's working. Okay,
yes.
great.
Okay, okay. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I do not understand what's happened. Anyway, so anyway, we are on the discussions that what's going on will be the next 3 to 5 years. So besides that, uh, uh, yes, thank you. Now actually, yes, I listen clearly. You can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, okay. Thank you. So beside that, I want to move to the forward. Sorry for interruption, dear audience. I'm really sorry because this is very interesting discussions. So okay. Uh, let's say in Asia Pacific, I want to share some of the views from Asia Pacific. Let's say there are many universities. It's especially Malaysia is a very beautiful hub for educations.
Mhm.
But still I think that I believe that youth community, young community, they have to more engage with this kind of things. Beside that, you are talking about that you have some partners that the yeah, those who train from your organization, they have opportunity to get jobs in different North American companies or
Mhm.
something like that. Can you share the process, or how they can get involved with these things?
Yes, absolutely. So once they go through the Ahura AI training modules, we're able to see how well they do on each different subject. So rather than going to a university where they get an A or a B or a C or a specific GPA at the end of the classroom, we actually can tell on every single lesson, on every piece, how well they're learning or how well they understand the material, which means that after they go through Ahura, we immediately connect them to the sister companies that we have, the companies where we have partnerships, where they can see exactly how well the students have performed, how
Mhm.
hard that they've worked, how well they've learned the material. And they have a series of companies in the Western world that are actively looking to hire people, whether they're in Southeast Asia or in Africa or other areas that definitely are not in the United States or in Europe, to have offshore workers working with them to take on some of the challenges that they face. So right from there, they're able to connect from Ahura to our partner companies to the corporations that are hiring, and the corporations that are hiring get to also see that information around how well the students have learned, how well they've performed, how focused they are while they're working, and they get to select from that pool and hire them to work remotely. Now, one of the benefits there is we have made agreements that guarantee that those people will get living wages, which means that the people that go through Ahura will get paid significantly higher than what they would be paid if they were in their local economy, so that they can bring more revenue and more money into those communities, which will then get spent within those communities by those individuals to build that local economy up from the ground up, which means that it creates more demand for clothing, for restaurants, for housing, for a variety of other things. And because those people can bring that those resources into their community, the goal is to enable those communities to flourish.
Mhm. Yes, this is very good. Beside that, many governments I saw from South Asia, Asia Pacific, they are also taking a lot of initiative for developing the school skills of the young community. And
Mhm.
especially Asia, I think 57% actually youth. So there is a, I think, huge amount of populations actually government trying to give them training. But like example. Uh, how you making the strategic alignment with these different developing nations governments, how you helping them, or how you trying to give them support, like is there any things that you want to share with this World Talent Economy Forum? Even we have many policymakers and other people, they are also joining, and they said that they have many problems. Even we can arrange roundtable discussions on that particular point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, oftentimes it's through organizations like this where I meet the decision makers within governments that enable us to do partnerships with them. So what generally happens is either they reach out to me directly by emailing me at brian@ahuraai.com, or through roundtable discussions and conversations about the future of work, people introduce me to government officials or people that have resources and decision-making ability, so that we can then get together and say, okay, what are the needs of your local economy? What are the needs of your country? And how can we at Ahura support that? Now, what that does is enables us to deeply understand how we can help, and especially for the part of our company that gives away these licenses to members of these underserved communities. Now, we do ask that the governments or nonprofits that work with us make sure that when we give out blocks of 10,000 or 50,000 licenses, or however many licenses we give out, that those organizations have people on the ground that can determine who are the people that should have access to our technology. So oftentimes they'll set up scholarships, so people will apply, they will share why they're going to use this technology, and then they make a commitment that they're going to use our technology for, let's say, an hour every single day or 2 hours every single day. They make those commitments, and then they get access to our technology. What that does is it forces the people that actually want our technology to come to us, rather than just give it out to everybody and have a bunch of people that have licenses that don't use it. Now, one of the other things that various organizations do is they figure out a way to make sure that we're able to give these licenses to people that already have a laptop that has the camera and the microphone and video and so forth, and they also speak English, and they have a strong and secure internet connection. And so the partners that we have around the world are much more capable than we are of determining who are the right people that have access to the technology and can speak English and actually are willing to do the work. And so we do ask our partners to take an active role to make sure that those people are successful. Because I can tell you what is not successful is to have a partner that says, hey, we have these licenses, we'll just put it online. Anybody that wants to have access to it has it. But then what turns out is you have a lot of people that just want to spectate or just want to look at the technology, or it's a hobby for them, rather than people that actually actively want access to this kind of technology. And so we do work very actively with our partners. And given that we're willing to give our technology for free, we want to make sure that our partners around the world take it very seriously as well, because it does take resources on our side from server space and time and effort to make sure that we're providing this.
Yes, this is very, very nice initiative. You are thinking. There is an audience response. His name is Mr. Araf Mehraz. He's saying it's a great discussion. Mr. Bryan, what do you think about uh, AI? AI is going to create a barrier to the future employment, according to many researchers. Like according to the researchers, maybe they are thinking that the AI will create a barriers or something. So, what do you think? Is it the right things, or is it the different thinking you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So he is right in a number of ways. I'm glad he brought that up. Look, as a student of history, we've had many times throughout human history where new technologies have radically transformed the labor markets and the skills that people need. From the first industrial revolution, where people realized that they could use plows and animals to be able to use technology to do more work than any one human could do, to then being able to work in factories because of electricity in the second industrial revolution, where people worked on one thing at a time, and then a lot of people were working together on one piece, to the third industrial revolution, where people had access to data and computing that radically transformed the work we do. Instead of just being in an office using paper, being able to work collaboratively across the world. Now, look, the fourth industrial revolution that uses automation and artificial intelligence is going to have a massive impact. You're absolutely right. It changes the skill sets that you need. A lot of old jobs are going to go out the window. Now, with that being said, every single time we've had an industrial revolution or we've used technology to transform the labor markets, we've actually created more new jobs than we've lost, which is actually really interesting. The question, though, is what are those new jobs and how do we rapidly retrain the global population for this new world of technology? Because in the first industrial revolution, if you as a person would farm your field and make clothing for your family and do all those things by hand, suddenly if you have machines that are able to do 100 times as much work as you do, it's irrelevant for you to be doing those things by hand anymore with a shovel and with a sewing needle. And so you have to learn how to do other things. You have to learn how to make those machines work. And suddenly you're able to be productive again. The same thing is going to be the case now with artificial intelligence. So my recommendation is, especially for young people, is to dive in and learn as much about technology as possible. And indeed, it has been said by people that are much, much smarter than me that in our new world, the folks that don't know how to code, how to program computers, will be considered functionally illiterate. Just like in our previous generations, a person that didn't know how to read or write was considered functionally illiterate. So my recommendation is learn how to code, become a digital native, be very comfortable with computers, learn how to utilize artificial intelligence, learn how to work remotely, because that's just critical. I mean, no longer can people hide behind the excuse that, oh, I'm just not good with computers. That doesn't work anymore. People used to say that in the 90s and the early aughts, and they were able to get away with it. But the reality is, even whether it's folks that are youth or even people in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s even, people need to learn how to use technology and how to be absolutely comfortable with using technology in their everyday lives, because that's the future.
Yes, this is very interesting. There are more audience response. He is Mohammad Shohel Rana. His question is that, Mr. Bryan, since you are working with AI, I want to know what kind of work new startup can do with AI and focusing on which sector should be done. Okay.
Great question. Every sector. Look,
Yes.
if you remember back to the 90s, when the internet first started coming out of just the interface, which is just text, into a graphical user interface, which is called GUI, and started to achieve mass adoption, what you saw was the corporations that were early adopters of the internet were able to radically generate significant competitive advantage against companies that were not. And the companies that waited and didn't use the internet ultimately died. I mean, look at Blockbuster. Look at many examples of companies who are littered in the graveyard of the unwillingness to embrace technology. Artificial intelligence will have the same impact in our current decade that the internet did in the 90s, which is to say that in every sector, in every industry, in every type of work, the organizations who embrace artificial intelligence and incorporate it into the key part of their work will sustain significant competitive advantage and will be able to win against folks that don't. Now, the only reason corporations or entities refuse to use artificial intelligence is fear. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear that they will have to learn new things, do things differently, because at the end of the day, people like to do the same thing. It brings them comfort. But the reality is that our world is changing. And so the answer to your question is every sector. So what I would do if I were you, to the person that asked this question, is look at the sectors that you already know a lot about, that you know very deeply, you know the challenges that they face, you understand their strengths, and then at the same time, learn all about artificial intelligence and figure out how you can use artificial intelligence to use massive quantities of data, to analyze that data, understand how you can optimize the different processes and systems within that industry. And I promise you, if you're able to do that, you're going to be able to generate a significant amount of value for yourself and that entire sector.
Yes, but this is very good guideline, because even in startup I do discuss with lot of governments and lot of venture capital from South Asia and Asia Pacific, and we find that many startup actually fail. Even they follow in that way, maybe they can figure out a very good way of sustainability. This is very important. Okay, this is very good initiative and good thoughts you are taking. Beside that, like example, uh, now we have economic challenges, now we have a lot of challenges actually coming, even lot of technological improvements, and you are also discussing about the futures, what's going on in the futures. But one of the important aspect is that humanity,
Mhm.
like example, we have to do lot of work and we have to finish some responsibility for countries, for our own countries, and I know you from different backgrounds, and you have a very interesting perceptions for developing the values and other things. So what do you think, what's going on in this world, is that we are full of driving on business, or we have to do something different for our community, for our country? What's your advice on that particular point?
That's a really interesting question. Look, there's a lot of conversation that's been happening around, is the GDP the right measurement, the right KPI, which we use in the tech community as key performance indicator, to understand the success of a community or a country? In fact, one of the things that Andrew Yang taught me is that initially, even the person that created the GDP, the economist that created it, said this should not be used as the measurement of health for an economy, because it does not take into account many important parts of the labor market. And so there are some countries that are looking at the gross happiness index. There are other countries that are looking at GDP plus. What is the unpaid work that's done in nonprofits? What is the unpaid work that's done in raising the next generation, raising children? How do you incorporate educating children into the GDP? How do you take into account all of these other things that provide value to the world and value to humanity that aren't counted in just amount of trade that's done or amount of money that's raised? I think that's a really good question. I think that again, if we're a student of history, in every global shock or pandemic that we've had, it has also come with a flowering of intellectual thought, where as a result of the world not working, many of the top scholars, the top business people and entrepreneurs, the most intelligent people, the intellectuals, have come together and said, hey, let's revisit our political systems, our economic systems, our sociological systems, the way we interact, to see, is there a more optimal way for us to organize society? And that is happening right now, where intellectuals and business people and scientists are getting together to say, how can we build on top of the systems that we have built to continue to improve them, and continue to enable them to reach more and more of humanity and enable us to have a bigger impact. And so those are conversations that I'm constantly in. And I would encourage every person that's listening to get in on those conversations, begin thinking outside the box, begin looking at, if we were able to change any of our systems, what would be those changes? What would be things that we need to improve? So how do we, whether it's a universal basic income that provides a floor within capitalism, or a negative income tax, which is what Dr. Martin Luther King and many economists, including uh, I forget which economist, I apologize, but there's a lot of economists that proposed this idea in the early days. Andrew Yang, of course, now has been a big proponent of it here in the United States and is driving that conversation. Or how do you take into account mental health? Because as we see right now, there are massive spikes in clinical depression, clinical anxiety, suicidal ideation. Um, People are struggling to be able to deal with all the changes, the rapid changes that are happening in our society. So again, how do we look at the mental health world? how do we take care of our fellow humans? One of the final things that I will say on this is, how do we structure society? So over human history, we always lived in tribes and large families. So anytime you had an issue or a problem or needed to talk through something, there were 50 people you could go to that cared about you as an individual. It's only since the 50s and 60s, over the past 50 to 70 years, that we've changed our model to these nuclear families with a mother, father, and the children, and maybe pets, that see each other on a regular basis and have to be everything for each other, the support structure and so forth. And what we're finding is that has some deleterious impacts on people. So, how do we create new systems? Well, it's where, especially in this post COVID pandemic world, where people can get into these pods of tribes that are self selected rather than simply familial, where you can be surrounded by 10, 20, 30, 40 people. You can do business with each other, you can be friends with each other, but you can also support each other emotionally and socially and intellectually, so that you can bring your best self forward on a daily basis to engage in whatever project or company or work that you have. And so we're looking at some radical changes and shifts, and those are the changes that I think are the most profound initially. And of course, there's going to be a lot of other ones coming as well.
Yes, thank you. There are more questions from the audience. Her name is Hosne Ara Firdaus. She asked you a question: what role can AI play in women workers' skill development so that they can work directly in any futures epidemic or economic activity from home? So I think she is concerned
Absolutely.
about women activity. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's absolutely critical. Look, when we give out free licenses, we have a very specific gender lens. We focus on giving and making sure that over 50% of the users and licenses that we give out go to women. The reason why that's very important is because there's been quite a bit of data that's been collected, and a lot of research that's been done by various universities, as well as the United Nations and the World Trade Organization, that have found that when women have more access to education and more access to opportunity, that has a massive impact on those communities, much more so than men. So there was a study where, for example, in certain parts of Africa and Asia, they just gave out a bunch of money to men versus women. And what they found is that the men often went and squandered a lot of that money on alcohol and fun and things like that. And women actually used that money that they were given to empower the communities around them, to provide access to resources for more people. And so it created an exponential effect that was a virtuous cycle that went up. And so we all know that the higher the education level and income of women, the fewer children that they have, and the faster those communities are able to cultivate different businesses and different things to take care of each other. Has an exponential impact. And so that is a core focus on what we do at Ahura. That's a huge focus of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that in the World Economic Forum we focus on through partnerships to make that happen. And so I think that's a great question. And we want to empower women to be able to get that education, work remotely from home, which means they can take care of their kids while they're working, be able to be present in their lives, and still be able to generate income for themselves and their families. What that does is enables them to have a certain level of security, so that, for example, if their husband or the families around them don't treat them well, they have the ability to go live on their own with their children, which means, by definition, the people around them have to treat them better. It just becomes a game theory where everybody starts to treat each other better and more healthfully. And of course, we know about the challenges about rapid population expansion and what that does to our environment, what that does to resource allocation. And so when people know that they have enough resources to take care of their families, and they have the resources to have more agency and control over their own reproductive choices, that creates a lot of downstream positive impacts for those societies as well. So I'm glad you brought that up, and it's absolutely critical to the work that the World Economic Forum is doing, the work that the United Nations is doing, and the work that we are doing around the world as well.
Very, very good initiative. Actually, yes, we have to. Even my PhD actually in with the gender issues. So it's actually a very good question and very good answers. So you are a critical thinker with a different strategy. This is very good. But beside that, my question is that, like example, even many countries, even in Asia Pacific, let's say from Indonesia, Malaysia, example from China, from Vietnam, they have different language.
Yeah.
So yes, I understand that you are also running the English language and these things. But if you want to grow, like, do you have any future plan that you will use some translators or the local communities, those who can train their community with their own language? Let's say in Japanese, people come up with their Japanese language, or what do you think? Is it good for educations, or what's your plan?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the plan long term. That's on our roadmap. It does require resources and it does require expansion on our part. Look, with it as a tech company, as a small tech company, that's an early stage company, we have a limited number of resources. So we have to be very efficient with the use of our resources. We have to be very focused on what our engineers do and what our employees do because we need to take care of one problem at a time. Down the road, we're definitely going to have different languages. With that being said, we also need to understand that whether we like it or not, English is the language of business in the world. Most business is conducted in English on a global scale, and especially for people that want to be able to work remotely at Western corporations, it's important to be able to work in English. And let's be frank, most coding and programming is done in English as well. And so that's the lowest hanging fruit. That's what we're starting with. Long term, you're absolutely right. We want people to be able to speak in their own language. We want them to be able to learn different skill sets in their own language as well, and we'll be incorporating that.
Thank you, sir. There are four more audience response actually today. Humaira Tanzila, she said, hello, sir. Nice to see you here. We learn a lot from this conversation. Thank you. Shumon Dorji, he said, excellent discussion. Mr. Bryan, can you give us an idea of what scholarship are being offered by organization or government for skill development for the students? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know with our partner countries in Ghana, Tanzania, India, Kenya, Congo, Brazil, and some other places, the partnerships we have, because look, our technology generally we sell at a price to corporations then that use this technology to retrain their existing employees or upskill them. And so when we give this technology to our non-governmental entities, the nonprofits, or the governmental entities in these countries, they then set up their own entire system that says, hey, this is something that's generally fairly expensive. However, if you do an application, you tell us what your commitment is, how hard you're willing to work, what jobs that you want to do, what you want to learn, tell us more about yourself. Then we have these scholarships where you will get this technology for free. And so depending on where you live, you can work with any number of organizations to do that. In Malaysia, we do not have a partnership yet, but I'm hoping that either through Sharif or through some of these roundtables or through some of the listeners who are engaged in nonprofits or governmental work, we can do partnerships together. And hopefully within the next several months, we'll be able to have some resources online where you can apply, get a scholarships, and immediately get access to our technology so that you can begin studying this material, learning different skill sets, and being able to get a job working remotely.
This is very good initiative you have. Even World Talent Economy Forum, we have our Asia Research and Development Institutions. This is also non-profit. We have Al Noor Academy. So we are working together. So even let's say tomorrow we have conference in Bangladesh, in India. We are train. We provide training around 300 schools, like fourth industrial revolutions, and we are trained not only students, we are training even teachers and academic people, those who are involving with this kind of thing. So any of your good idea, definitely World Talent Economy Forum trying to support the brilliant mind, trying to come up with some good ideas. So we find that your organization has a huge impact in the community. So definitely, as much as possible in the future, we will arrange different roundtable discussion, different conference, and we will invite about you and your organization, definitely.
That's great. Well, Sharif, I would absolutely love to do a partnership with you. I would love to for our organizations to partner to be able to impact many people. And I'm happy to, and I'll say this publicly now. We're happy to provide licenses of our technology through the World Talent Economic Forum, so that you can then distribute it to the people in need in your part of the world. So we'd love to
Yes.
partner with you. We'll have that conversation online to see what that looks like.
Thank you, thank you. I want to move in the more like with the problem of the youth community, because example, I also involved with academia, and I find really we have a lack of good human resources, those who can train, example, students. Even students always try to take different kind of initiative, different kind of, they want to build up different things, but we have system error. We cannot support to the students, we cannot support to the young community for the new idea with their new innovations. So how your organization can help and this kind of students for support them, or creating new things with AIs and the new technology and new projects. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would say the biggest thing for students is to learn how to code as fast as they can. Learn how to code in Python, in Java, in R, in Ruby on Rails. And then if you have the capability and the willingness, learn how to code in blockchain as well. Learn how to code in Solidity. Learn how to code in these different languages that blockchains use, because the blockchain is Internet 3.0. Now, what you'll find when you start learning how to code in various languages is you only really need to learn to code once, because each different coding language ultimately uses very similar logic. It just has different syntax. It has a different way of going about it. So once you actually learn how to code the first time, picking up additional languages is much more trivial than you would think. Now, once you learn how to code and program, whether you're coding just a regular app on an iPhone, or learning how to code for artificial intelligence and to be able to create models and feed training data to those models so that you can have that impact. Or once you start learning on the blockchain, and keep in mind, blockchain coding is a little bit more challenging than regular coding, uh, you'll begin seeing the world in a different way. You will have the tools at your disposal to be able to create, to be able to solve problems without a massive team. You'll be able to jump right in and be able to solve problems. And there's a massive demand for coders regardless. So not only will you be able to jump in and work at various corporations, but you'll also be able to start your own company. So as you're making money, you can also, in the evening or the weekend, start coding solutions to problems that you see in your community or in the world much at large. And you can roll out that product, you can roll out that solution, have people begin using it, and figure out how to monetize it and commercialize it. Because look, there are a lot of challenges that we face in the world, and most of them can be solved using technology and using computers. So I would focus on that. I began learning to code when I was roughly 7, 8 years old. And it had a massive impact on the way I saw the world and the way I was able to solve problems. It enabled me to work at NASA. Of course, I did a lot of physics and quantum mechanics and so forth. But while I was working at NASA, I was combining my understanding of physics and quantum mechanics with the ability to code and be able to get computers to do the work that I wanted. And so what you'll find is whatever your interests are, when you combine them with coding, you can actually accomplish a lot more. So I would just jump right in and begin teaching yourself how to code, or starting to learn how to code from other sources.
Yes. I think that I have to take more audience response. So they have questions. Mihai Lifi, he said, well done, Mr. Bryan. Nur Fazrin, she said, hi, sir, hope you are doing well. What is your advice about wisdom and knowledge? There is another question from Mr. Mustain. He said, Mr. Bryan, it's a great informative discussion. Third world countries are still far behind in the terms of skill development or in creating AI sector. in this case, how much do we developed countries support them, or can they do? Anyway, I think he's just discussing that third world country has many more problems. So how actually country like first world, because you are in USA, they can support to develop these things. So there is a two question. Yeah.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Mahai, for your kind words. Second of all, to answer the other questions, I do agree. I think that the first world or developed countries have a profound responsibility to help countries that are developing to enable that skills growth. In that light, that's part of the reason that we are giving away 50% of our technology for free to members of underserved communities around the world, because we are all one human family, regardless of political boundaries or ethnic differences or languages or anything. We are all one human family. We're all Homo sapiens sapiens. And if we raise everybody, we will be much more successful. Our goal at Ahura is to 10x the number of people that are educated around the world. Right now, only 6.6% of the globe has a college degree. We want that number to get to 6.6%, regardless of how that college degree comes about. And we believe that we can do it a lot faster using technology. Now, the United States has invested in the world. So, OPIC, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, which is an entity in the US government, for example, is putting $100 billion into Africa alone. There's a lot of resources that we're putting out, but we need to do more, and corporations need to do more. Look in the World Economic Forum, Sustainable Development Goal number 17 is actually public-private partnerships to solve all these problems. And a lot of those partnerships do involve expending resources around the world. I know the Next Global community, which is a community of investors and entrepreneurs that are focused on impact, are focusing very heavily on the developing world to solve a lot of problems, both with respect to upskilling and education, and as well as environment, because that can have a massive impact. And of course, the X Prize also focuses on this as well. So we have thrown our hat in the ring. We were invited to participate in the X Prize for the rapid reskilling and upskilling project. And the X Prize, historically, whether it was the X Prize for traveling to space and creating new ways of space travel, or on literacy, they had an X Prize to teach people specifically in developing world countries how to read and write using technology. And of course, in the rapid reskilling X Prize, there's a $5 million prize purse. But the goal is to have tens, if not hundreds, of companies compete with each other to create the most effective tools to retrain people around the world for the jobs of tomorrow. And so there are a lot of entities that are focused on this. And I think we're doing very good work to help society improve and to give people access to resources. Look, we spoke about this last time I was on the air with you, Sharif. My background, I was born in a tiny village with no running water and no electricity out in the southeastern desert of Iran. I lived in a refugee camp for 2 years in Turkey with access to no resources. And at the end of the day, I was very fortunate because then I was able to come to the United States and have access to the educational system here. But what we're working on with a lot of the different projects around the world, whether it's with the US government or with the World Economic Forum or the World Trade Organization or with the World training organization that you run, that there's a lot of focus on providing resources and skills education to people around the world. Those resources exist. So what I would say for people that are listening, look at Sharif's organization, definitely use those resources. See how many of those resources you can get, and go online as well. There are a lot of resources around the world. You might have to do a little digging. You might have to search the right one for you, but those resources do exist. And of course, you're welcome to go to ahuraai.com, AHURAAI.com, and throw your name on our wait list as well, so that once we have a direct-to-consumer product, you can have access to that one as well. So there's a lot of organizations willing to help. We're willing to help, and so let's move forward.
Yes, yes, this is very nice discussion. Even there are more appreciation from audience. Sheikh Hafizur Rahman, he said, thank you. It's a great initiative. Keep it up. Mohammad Sohail Rana, thanks, Mr. Bryan, and nice to see you again in World Talent Economy Forum. We are learning many things from your discussions. So this is actually very positive discussions. I think our audience also enjoying, and hopefully we will get more of your advice, your guidelines, and your involvement with World Talent Economy Forum, because we have a lot of interesting activities we are already started. I already said that we are taking 300 education institution, and we first train the head of the education institution. Beside that, from this month we are starting different kind of summit. Different students from around the world, they are joining. So even different academicians, corporation, they are joining. So hopefully your engagement with us can add very interesting things, and by this way we can improve lot of human beings, we can help lot of human beings, because you started from your journey from Iran, and then you now you are a successful entrepreneurs. So maybe your motivation, your guidelines, your approach, your strategy can enlighten lot of human beings and lot of young talented, and by this way we can change this world. So this is very good discussion. What's your concluding remarks for today's sessions? Yeah.
Well, so Sharif, I want to say I'm so impressed with the work that the World Talent Economic Forum is doing in Malaysia and around the world. I highly recommend to any of the listeners to use the resources that Sharif has created. And I would say believe in yourself and take steps. Look, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the world that will make people be a little depressed or think about that the world is going in a direction that's unfortunate and sad. But the reality is the only thing that matters is what's between your ears. And regardless of the things that are happening, the most important trait that you can develop is adaptability, being able to adapt to your current surroundings and be successful no matter what. Because once you make that decision, then you'll find the resources, you'll find the avenue, and you'll find a way through, around, or over any obstacle in front of you. We're happy to help. The World Talent Economic Forum is happy to help. The organizations around the world are happy to help, but nobody can walk that path but you. And I'll leave it with that. Thank you so much, Sharif, for having me. This was an amazing conversation. I enjoyed it. I'm looking
Yes.
forward to more
Yes,
conversations in the future.
I don't. I know that you already you finished, but there are question from print media. So can I take, even if the session is finished?
Sure,
Can I take a question?
absolutely.
Okay, okay. I think he's a journalist. He said that how much of a role it can play in the world of printing or in the world of a news portal. Journalists are facing any new challenges? Like, do you have any advice for journalists? I think he's from print media and electronic media. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so you probably know a lot more about your industry than I do. I do know that um, print is ultimately not as scalable as digital. So the future of journalism is definitely in the digital space and video space. So as you move forward, I recommend developing a deep understanding of the role of social media, how to expand your message to include more people. Video is taking over, especially as people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. So figuring out how you can provide your pieces of content in smaller, bite-sized pieces that can connect to much wider audiences. But you know a lot more about journalism than I do, I imagine. Keep in mind, though, that AI can be used to give the right information to the right people, depending on what kind of news they want to read or want to watch at any given moment. And that digital distribution channels are likely going to replace print. We've already seen that happen over the past 10, 20 years, but that's only going to accelerate. So keep that in mind as you move forward.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bryan. It's actually very nice discussions. I think people also enjoy it. They have a lot of responses and they come up with the different questions. And I think it's a very good brainstorming session. World Talent Economy Forum, we have many interesting session in the futures. We will invite you, and definitely we will try to collaborate with you, and we will make some interesting sessions together. Thank you for your valuable time and advice and guideline. Thank
Thank you
you.
for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.